Mac and Perry in the place. Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry go live to create. Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry invite you to stay.
Welcome to TELUS STORYHIVE On Location here at 5th Avenue United Church in Medicine Hat. I'm Michael.
I'm Daniel, and this is
Robert Weissmann.
So thanks so much for meeting with us, Robert. So what is your artistic practice? What do you do?
I work with glass.
Yeah. And what sort of glass?
I do stained glass. I do sculptures with glass.
To start, we do a segment with our icebreaker games, just to get to know you a little bit. So we'll ask you some questions we'll do some trivia and then ask you just some general questions, not about your artistic practice, but just you as a person. And we'll answer too, and it'll be fun. Yeah, so the first one we do is a little bit of trivia, very simple Medicine Hat trivia. So Medicine Hat is halfway between A, Lethbridge and Moose Jaw. Is it halfway between Vancouver and Winnipeg? Is Medicine Hat halfway between Edmonton and Bozeman, Montana, or south? Or between Alaska and South Carolina? If you had to guess of how far.
I would say the first one.
First one, so Lethbridge and Moose Jaw?
Yeah.
Not quite.
Really?
It was Vancouver and Winnipeg, actually. It's halfway. Vancouver, Winnipeg. It's a fact. That is a fact about Medicine Hat. So the oldest historic building in Medicine Hat is A, the Ewart Duggan House, B, the Brown Durand Residence, C, the Canadian Pacific Railway Station, or D, the Cecil Hotel, if you had to guess. Oldest one.
B.
B, the Brown Durand Residence. That was in 1912 that opened. It's actually the Ewart Duggan House, which was in 1887.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right by the Esplanade there.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's now I promise that's
stuff I'm learning today.
right. Did you want to try pulling one of the hats?
If I
you
could read one.
If you can read it. If not, you can give it to me and I'll read it.
Okay. Spotlight or spectator?
Nice. Yeah. For me, being an actor by training, I generally prefer the spotlight. Yeah. Even though I'm more of an introverted person, I do find, being on stage, being in front of people, I find them very comfortable. It can be very natural. So, I would say spotlight for me. How about you?
Oh, probably spectator.
Yeah. Any particular things you like to, events or things you like to be a spectator of?
I like music.
Music, okay.
So that's what I really miss here, is that there's no symphony or, good jazz.
Next one, tea or coffee? What's your drink of choice?
Tea.
Yeah?
Yep.
What kind of tea do you like to drink?
Orange Pico.
Orange Pico, nice. Well, I'm on the opposite side. I'm a coffee drinker. It's never loved tea myself. So let's love coffee in the morning. Dark coffee. Yeah.
There you have it.
There we go. And normally we move on to our tumbling towers game.
Okay.
This is the last one we'll force you to do. So I just pulled out 7. So why don't I see what number 7 says? Are you much of a reader, Robert?
Not really.
Okay. Well, this question is, what are you reading right now, or a book that stood out to you in the past?
I'm listening to books now.
That works. What book are you listening to
I'm listening to one about Gordon Lightfoot.
Oh, yeah.
I know nothing about the man, and so I wanted to learn. So I'm into that.
What have you learned about him?
He had a hard life.
Yeah.
He was an alcoholic. He wrote some fantastic songs. He burned a lot of bridges, and he almost destroyed himself. But he still writes these beautiful songs. A lot of pain in those songs too.
I guess for me, what am I reading right now? So I'm reading a book on creativity. It's by Philippe Petit. And he was a fellow, maybe you've heard of him, in the 70s. He's a wire walker, and he crossed the World Trade Center. It was his big thing. Yeah. So he's a performer, and that was one of his major accomplishments. But it was like he did it like illegally. All his wire walks are illegal, right?
Yeah.
He went across like Notre Dame. Yeah, so it's the book is called Creativity: The Perfect Crime. So it's like he wrote it from his perspective about like how to make creativity kind of like a heist, or like make it like a a crime that you're committing that's not a real crime. But what I like about that story was he talks about with any of his walks, like with a crime, you're taking something, but with his performances, he's giving something to people. He's giving them this gift, and so that's how he kind of turns it around. But it's still very heisty. So
Right.
yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess that's all the time we have for this segment. So, Robert, I'm really excited to learn about your artistic practice and talk about your glass work. Yeah, I guess I know you said at the very beginning, but yeah, maybe just it'll sound repetitive, but just tell me about your artistic practice generally.
I've worked with glass for years, and I've tried to use it in as many ways as I possibly can. And it's a material that I can sculpt, that I can do all kinds of stuff with. You know, I do a lot of kiln work. Doing that, it's like Christmas every morning. You know, I open that lid, and I don't know what I'm going to get. It's just been a really good journey. You know, I met a lot of people.
And you've been doing this for over 4 decades, right?
Right.
Yeah. Let's go try to go all the way back. Maybe when you were younger. Yeah, like when did you start kind of like expressing yourself artistically?
One of my dad's brothers, my Uncle Gus, he was a glass master in Toronto, and he taught at the Ontario College of Art. And Gus has done a lot of church windows. I remember spending a weekend with him when I was probably around 14 or so, and we made this lantern out of glass and resin. And I think that was the first thing I ever did. And I still got it.
Yeah.
I was living in a small town in Ontario. There was a night school class at the high school in stained glass, so I took that. I ended up breaking more glass than I could use. And then I was really fortunate a few years later to get an apprenticeship at Luxor Prism Company in Toronto, which was one of the major studios.
With the experience with your uncle, like that lantern, yeah, like what was that like first working with glass? Do you remember that experience?
Yeah, it was the color. I was really excited that you hold up a piece of glass to the light. It does something to my soul, you know. I remember carrying those pieces home with me, and I was pretty excited about it.
And when you had your own studio, like you're first starting out with that, yeah, what was that like first starting out on your own?
It was exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, just going around to the different wholesalers, you know, trying to get wholesale prices on the glass and the lead, and getting to meet a lot of people. And like I say, we worked in a lot of churches. We did a job at St. Michael's Cathedral in Toronto, and these windows were over a side doorway, and they'd been wooded up for over 200 years.
Wow.
So when we took the wood off, it was really kind of cool to see out that view that nobody had seen in 200 years.
So how long would that project have taken you?
Those projects take probably at least 6 months. You know, that was a big job. You know, the windows here, I could probably do one every 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I guess like early on, you probably lots of learning that went on. And
well, there was, because we got thrown into situations where we had to rely on things that we had been taught. You just learn so much by doing, and we were doing a lot.
Is there anything, if you can think, it's been a while, but think back like that maybe you would have learned back at your time in Toronto that was like particularly meaningful or memorable?
There's a few windows that that are scattered around, you know, Ontario, that if I walked into that church today, my eyes would go straight to a spot that I was going, you know, that could have been a little bit better. Sure. But we were fortunate. We ended up getting a contract to do windows out of Edmonton, which is a Lutheran cathedral there. So, you know, we got to travel a bit.
Were there any other things that come to mind for your time in Toronto? You were there for a number of years, right?
I was.
A decade or more, right?
I would say just the people that I met and the different styles of glass work that I saw.
Would you say you have a particular style of your glass work that you says that's Robert?
My work is pretty organic. It's more on the modern side compared to traditional. I find when I design a window, it comes fast, which I still don't understand, but it does. It just feels right.
So you're in Toronto. You're from there. You have your studio. You're there for a number of years working. Yeah. What came next in your artistic journey?
I moved to the coast. I moved to Salt Spring Island. There wasn't much glass work to be done there. And it took quite a while before I got any, and it was in Vancouver. I worked at the cathedral, Catholic Cathedral in downtown Vancouver, restoring windows. I traveled to get work. When I ended up in Victoria, when I moved to Victoria, I was traveling back and forth doing these windows, coming and taking 2 or 3 at a time and taking them back to Victoria and then bringing them back.
Windows from here?
Yep.
Okay. Like compared to other projects you would have done, like what sort of scale was it? Was it a big project?
The big windows in a diamond shape over the altar. And the problem was, like, the sun was coming in during Mass and nobody could see.
Okay.
So they wanted to put something there to block the direct sunlight. And there was another one the same size at the other end, at the back. So it was, it was a good project. I really enjoyed that. I got to use a lot of nice glass doing it. That makes my job that much more satisfying, using good products.
When you're, let's say, working for a church, let's say, do you source that material yourself, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm doing new windows,
sure,
and the budget's good, I'll try to use hand-blown glass, which now all of it comes from Europe, and it's full of striations and imperfections. So when the light hits it, it dances all over the place. You know, like these windows, it's all machine made. So when the light hits it, it goes right through it. I mean, it gives color, but it doesn't come alive.
Mm-hmm. And would you have used any of the antique in your West Coast projects?
Yes, that's all I used.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that glass came out of Poland. I don't think they're in existence anymore. The stained glass world has really gotten small. Everything is so expensive now that most people can't afford to get it done. And because of that, a lot of the manufacturers are gone. Stained glass is a funny thing. It seems to go like this, and it comes in waves. It sort of went out of fashion at the turn of the century, and then we get to the 60s and 70s, and all of a sudden it becomes really popular again. And that's why all these stores popped up. The closest place I can go here is Calgary, which isn't bad, but still, it's just too expensive. It's crazy.
I believe the next place you were at was here in Medicine Hat.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what brought you to Medicine Hat?
I got married.
Okay.
My wife is from Medicine Hat, and we got married in this church. So I've been here, I think it's 9 or 10 years. I should know, but
yeah.
So yeah, that's what brought me here.
Nice. Yeah, and then you're obviously doing glass work in Medicine Hat. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, I've restored most of these windows. I restored windows at St. Barnabas down the road, St. John's. I did some windows. I did a window for the base out at Suffield for their chapel there. I just finished a project that took a long time to get it together. There used to be an academy here called St. Teresa's, and it was torn down in 74, I think, and they had these huge stained glass windows, and they disappeared. And they were found in Victoria, of all places. And I happened to be there, and I was asked to go and see what shape they were in. And then I heard nothing else, and then I moved back here, and the next thing I know, I'm involved in the windows here. Eventually, they ended up being mine, and now they're 3 of them, the 15-foot tall ones, have been restored, and they're going into a new Catholic school. So that's going to be really cool. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
do you know when that's?
I think it's not until 27.
Okay.
They're just building the school now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw a video that you had posted about that project, and they came from France, if I remember that
They
correctly.
did.
right?
They
Yeah.
came from Reims in France. And when my wife and I went to France, I went to the studio, and they were closed for a bank holiday. Couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It's like, really? And we were leaving the next day.
Yeah. Oh, that's too bad.
It was.
Oh.
It was. I really wanted to talk to them.
Yeah, because that was like in 1914 or something, wasn't it? Like it was a long time ago
That they
that
got here.
originally brought them here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1914,
Yeah.
they arrived here, and they stayed there until 74.
And I mean, I don't know if you know much about the history of those pieces, but like, would they have shipped them as one piece, or how did that have worked?
What they did was a lot of churches got windows from England or Germany or France. And when they got shipped over in those days, they packed them in grease so they wouldn't break. I don't know how they shipped the frames over, probably, but they're the original frames too. It's quite a project.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
I was blessed to, a friend of mine basically gave me the studio space. Had 20-foot tall ceilings, so I could actually work on the full windows.
And how long has that project taken you?
That's another long story too, but I've been involved with those windows for probably at least 14, 15 years. And they've been moved around a lot, and they've been broken, and it was a real shame what happened with those windows. But now they're back, and they're going to be seen again.
Spending that much time with a project, do you have a certain attachment to those windows?
Oh yeah.
Is it kind of different, like with these windows, they're here in this building, but those windows are, they're by themselves, they'll be in a building. Does that change at all? That, being without a buildingless, orphan windows for now?
Well, they lived in my studio. I did a lot of work on those windows in that studio, and like I said, I was really blessed to have the height and the space. It was huge. I'm just really grateful that the Catholic School Board decided to do something with them, because there was years that nobody wanted them, and I didn't know what I was going to do with them, And I got a phone call one day, and that was that.
Oh, good, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what else might you have done with those windows?
Well, I hate to say it, but they might have ended up in the dump. Nobody wanted them. I didn't have the space to keep them forever, and if anything happened to me, somebody's got to deal with it.
Yeah.
So it's a real blessing that they're going to be used.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, especially,
Yeah.
that people will see through them again, yeah.
And it's on the same hill that the original cathedral or the academy was on. So
Oh, cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really nice.
Oh, that's great, yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that's working out, especially after such a long time, and those windows being, in other places. And
Oh, it was a headache.
Yeah.
It was.
And coming from, France, that's originally, wow.
Yeah.
Quite the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were there any other projects or things we'll get into the showcase, for the next segment, so I don't want to get too much into those details, but any other things around the Medicine Hat area that come to mind? that were meaningful?
The windows at St. Barnabas, they were done by a studio in Toronto. And I did a lot of subcontracting work for McCausland when I was in Toronto, so it was kind of neat to do another one here. That was a good job. And you know, you do it and you know they're going to be standing for at least another, let's say 75 years anyways.
I know you have an exhibit coming up, or an exhibit on right now.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that exhibit.
I've got, it's called Between Today and Yesterday. So I've got a bit of old. I've actually got one of the unrestored sections of the St. Teresa's Academy window in there. And then there's a showcase dedicated to my kiln work. And there's another showcase with a window I did from glass left over from a big job. Then there's the window that took me quite a bit of time. It's a bunch of windows put together. You have to see it. So I used good glass on that, and a lot of it's painted. And I had a blast doing it. You know, it was so much fun. This stage of my career or my life, it was pretty exciting. As this is, you know, this is, I don't get to do this very often. Usually I come and I work at a church and I don't talk to anybody and they don't talk, you know, there's nobody around to talk to. And if I'm doing new windows, you know, you put the window in, you go and give them the bill. Nobody says anything, you know, so it's nice to get a little feedback once in a while. I'm
really looking forward to, I honestly do want to see the exhibit is on now. We're going to check it out next time we're in Medicine Hat. And yeah, and I look forward to learning more about it in maybe the showcase segment, which is coming up next. So yeah, I appreciate the conversation. It's been really nice chatting with you, Robert.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So this has been TELUS Storyhives On Location here at the 5th Ave United Church in Medicine Hat. I'm Michael.
I'm Daniel, and this has been
Robert Weissmann.
All right, we'll be right back.
Hello and welcome once again to TELUS Storyhives On Location here in Medicine Hat. We are at 5th Ave United Church. I'm Daniel.
I'm Michael, and this
Robert.
is...
Yeah. Oh, you got it. It's Robert. It's the third time we're doing it. They know. Awesome. Yeah, and I'm super excited to dive into our showcase with you. We have it in the background. It is setting the scene for us here, which I really appreciate. And yeah, I think where I would love to start is just going back to, in your interview with Michael, you talked about Holy Cross Church and the piece that was in there. And I remember seeing, like, on your Facebook, the thing that really took my imagination is the sheer scale and size of that project. What can you tell me about that, working on that sort of scale? Is that average or was that unique in that way?
I don't think it's average, but it's probably one of the biggest projects I worked on. One of the problems I had with doing that window was finding a place where I could actually do that drawing. And I had a friend who, it was during the summertime, and he got me into the University of Victoria, into their sculpting department. And I had a wall that was probably 20 feet tall and a great big ladder on wheels that I could actually go and draw that, right?
Yeah.
But when I did the window, I did it in 4 sections, and it was all done on a light table, because there's a lot of painting involved in it too. But I couldn't see
The composition.
I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a little bit here, a little bit there. So when it went in, when I installed it, it was basically the first time I ever saw it together.
Yeah.
You know, and thank God it worked out. It looked okay.
Yeah. It sounds incredibly stressful. Do you remember the kind of timeline of that piece at the Holy Cross Church? How long was that piece? Did that take you?
For the window at the back of the church, it probably took me maybe 2 months. there was more painting involved. So that takes time because every time you paint, you got to fire it in the kiln. And so you're waiting for the firing to be finished, which, your firing schedule might be 12, 13, 14 hours. You're dealing with that.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so just because I know very little, if anything, about glasswork. So firing is one part of the process.
It can be.
It can be, right.
Right.
Okay, and so for that project specifically it was. What comes before that? If you could outline that for me.
Well, you do your drawing,
Yeah.
which we call a cartoon, and that's what I'm going to cut my glass from.
And that's to scale.
Yes,
I see.
that's the scale.
Yeah.
And so you do that, and then you cut the glass. And then if you're going to paint the window, that's when you paint it. And when that's done, you let it, you cement it, and you put it in. The tools and the methods of working with glass haven't changed at all, really. You've got your glass cutter, your pliers, and a hammer, and your hands.
Right.
Most important tool, right?
Yeah.
And it's been that way for 1,000 years.
What does that mean to you? What does it feel like to work in a craft that is that old? What does that mean to you?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's just part of me.
And I know towards the end of your interview with Michael, there was that notion of, what's going to happen to the craft after people like yourself. What are your feelings about that?
And it's a real shame that everything just became money, and that there really isn't a place to go and learn the craft the way I was taught. I don't think that's ever going to happen again. And like I said, I've tried to teach my grandkids.
Yeah.
Hoping one of them would go, hey, yeah, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Oh,
But I still enjoy teaching. There's a class maybe coming up over at the Esplanade, and I love sharing it. There's not a lot of people for me to talk to about my passion. And so when I get the opportunity to talk to people like yourselves or to teach, I get to share my experience, and I think that's important.
Yeah. And has there been any certain reactions, like from a class, like students, to any sort of reactions to your work? Do they get to see your work? Like,
sometimes it depends, where I'm living at the time and how, where my studio is, and I just love the look on people's faces, and they go, and they break a piece of glass, and they're just like, wow, I did that.
What that brings to mind for me is just that idea of like, it sounds as though there is some sort of repetition to the work, like those actions and stuff, and yet somehow there's like magic in it still, depending on the color or the shapes that you're going for, the overall design. So just that, I love that balance between monotony maybe, or ordinary, and then it's also extraordinary and still creative, right?
Yeah, and even those windows for the St. Teresa's Academy that I worked on, it's one thing to work on them on the bench, and then when you can put them up on an easel in a large window and see them, it's like it comes alive, right?
Even that transition from the easel in the workshop light, I have to imagine, and you say, like you said, like especially the what did you call it when it has all the stuff in the glass that makes it dance? Striations, there you go.
Yeah.
And just that transition from still the easel into the actual space, I imagine, right? Like,
yeah, there's the movements you do when you're picking your glass too, right?
Okay.
And you pull it out of the racks and you hold it up at a window, and you can move it around to see how it's working. That can be pretty exciting.
Yeah.
You know, if you got some really nice glass.
You've mentioned nice glass. What goes into nice glass specifically? Hand blown, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Is there specific materials that are different than maybe mass manufactured glass?
Well, it's the colors. It's the colors that they can get. And you know, if you hold up a sheet of antique glass, the thickness is going to vary too.
Right,
Because
in one
it's not-
sheet.
Yeah, because it's not machine made where they're all the same, right?
Yeah.
So you get colors blending too. You know, you might have a blue, but then it comes into a lighter shade as it goes through the glass. So you get to use that in your design.
And that is fascinating because, going back to the step-by-step process of doing the cartoon, and then the next thing is cutting,
cut it. Yeah.
And then the coloring.
The coloring's already happened.
The colorant has already happened, right? Because in my mind, I thought you add color. Interesting. So you're cutting the glass based on the color that has already been added.
Yes.
In the making of the glass.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for that piece of the Holy Cross, there was lots of blues for sure.
Right.
So I'm like, do you recall how many different sheets of glass you would have had to cut,
do that
even
project?
Approximately?
The sheets are probably, say, 2 feet by 3 feet.
Okay.
So I probably use at least 20, at least.
Yeah. And do you feel as though is resourcefulness a thing in this craft? Are you trying to use every bit that you can? Is there a bit of waste? Yeah.
Try to. I mean, I got boxes at home full of stuff. I say, well, I may use this on a project. You never do.
Right. And the leading, so after the firing has happened, the leading is, forgive me if this is a stupid question. There's no stupid questions, but leading is straight up lead?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And what's it like working with that and these materials?
That's part of it.
This is part of it, eh?
It's in the shape of an H. So one piece of glass sits here and one piece of glass sits there, right?
Okay.
And that's basically it. You can get different widths.
Okay.
But even that's starting to get hard to find too. So, yeah.
I'm curious about, does that restrict your creativity or does that provide structure? And I think I recall hearing you talk about how you can actually get creative with the lead as well.
Yeah. To me, the lead's got to tell a story too, because at nighttime, there's no color, but there's still the lead lines.
The lead lines.
So, yeah, it's important too. A lot of times using different thicknesses of leads, gives you different dimensional
impacts.
Yeah.
And just to kind of round off here, I just that sentiment of telling a story. I'm really curious if you just have any sort of last notions on that in this craft specifically, because I think it's really interesting, and I think that potentially it may be taken for granted. Just the idea that you are actually telling a story with your work here, and it lasts a considerable amount of time, and that it also needs maintenance, right? And to be restored, and just, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, originally, stained glass was to tell stories.
Right.
Because people couldn't read.
Right. Yeah.
So they would look at the windows, and there's where the stories were. And that continues to today. That most windows done for churches, there's a story behind them. There's stories behind my windows too, but it's not as obvious as, Jesus knocking at the door. So it's
a bit more subtle, and
yeah.
Well, I do think that's all the time we have for this segment.
Okay.
So I really appreciate your insight. Yeah, it's been awesome. So yeah, this
Thank
is
you.
the Windy City's finest on location, courtesy of TELUS STORYHIVE in Medicine Hat, and we are at 5th Avenue United Church.
Got it.
And I'm Daniel.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Robert.
And this is Robert. Awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in.
If you or someone you know has a story to tell, scan this QR code and get in touch with the StoryHive On Location team.